Let's go. That is amazing. Do you feel like that's maybe where your depression could have came from?
For sure.
I finally got to a point where I was happy for them meaning the Toronto Raptors. What did he mean by that?
There's a lot of stuff that went on that I never talked about.
What does LA mean to you?
LA means everything to me. You gotta have a side to you where you just don't care.
DeMar, thank you very much for sitting down with us. You are the first guest on our new segment, 101 with Trent Out Loud on CFQR 600 Montreal. So thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so everybody knows who you are, of course, especially in Canada, but I want to start off with some accolades just to remind them of the greatness. DeMar Darnell DeRozan, born in Compton, California, August the 7th, 1989. He played college basketball with USC Trojan and was selected 9th overall by the Toronto Raptors in the 2009 NBA draft. He is a 6-time All-Star and 3-time All-NBA team member. He spent 9 seasons with the Raptors, including 5 playoff runs before being traded to the San Antonio Spurs in the summer of 2018, Chicago Bulls 2021, and then traded to the Sacramento Kings in 2024. DeRozan is a gold medalist with the U.S. national team in 2014 World Cup and 2016 Summer Olympics gold winner. This is what I think is amazing. Of all active NBA players, DeMar DeRozan is currently on the 6th all-time scoring list with 23,582 points, slightly behind Steph Curry, who's in 5th place. Round of applause, everybody. Let's go. That is amazing. When I was doing my research, I didn't know that. How does it feel to hear those accolades?
Man, it's still surreal.
Yeah.
Still something I don't fully take in because, starting out 15, 16 years ago, I never thought I'd be sitting where I'm sitting, as far as history books are concerned. I never thought I'd be where I'm at.
I just want to add also, too, because I heard this in your book, of all time, there's only been 50 NBA players that have even broken 20,000 points. So that's another accolade. That's amazing, bro. So I absolutely love the title of this book. I think it's brilliant. Above the Noise, My Story Chasing Calm. Can you tell me a little bit about that title and what it means to you?
I try to make it as self-explanatory as possible. No, more so like, being above the distractions, the temptations, the negative energy that get thrown your way growing up in difficult situations and going through difficult situations. And with that, when everything get too loud for you, being able to chase something positive, and that's the calm. Especially, it's kind of, the storm, the calm before the storm, trying to stay in that element.
I love the word chasing because a lot of people think with mental health that it's something that you can obtain. It's something that you always have to continuously work on. So I love the word chasing, calm.
For sure, yeah.
Thank you so much for writing this book. I'm a mental health advocate. I've been diagnosed with being bipolar. And for me, I feel very open talking about mental health. A lot of people are like, oh, you shouldn't tell people all that stuff. But I feel like if, especially Black men like us, talk more about it, it dilutes the conversation and it doesn't make it so stigmatized. Whereas that, somebody will easily talk about being diabetic. And being diabetic just means that your pancreas does not produce insulin. You being depressed, that just means that your mind works a certain way. Or me being diagnosed with being bipolar, it's just an expression to let us know how our mind is thinking. So thank you so much for helping us and people like me spread the word, okay? When you first open your book, one of the first things you see is a dedication to your father. It says, "To my father, Frank DeRozan, the man who made who I am." What does that mean?
Oh man, my hero. The guy who raised me, the guy who taught me my morals, my hard work, showed me what resiliency was. He was the first staple of an idol that I had.
In your book, you said something that you said really stood out to me. And you said, "I'll never forget one night, I was 6 or 7 years old, looking outside of my front window and seeing a dead body lying in the middle of the street. That is something that a kid should never see. That body stayed there on a heap on the side of the road. It was hours before a wagon came and picked it up." Experts can never really pinpoint where depression or any sort of mental health stems from. But do you think seeing those things at such a young age, do you feel like that's maybe where your depression could have came from?
For sure. It's hard to understand life and death when you're young, but it's also harder to, understand that you could comprehend, and normalize seeing, somebody passing, seeing a dead body, normalizing that and compartmentalizing the extreme of that as a child kind of play on you, and it was tough, in the moment you don't realize it until later.
Now as an adult dealing with your mental health, I'm sure it's not easy to forget that, but are you at the point where you want to try to just block that out of your head, those memories of being 6 or 7 years old, or are you comfortable with dealing with it now?
It's still uncomfort, especially when me having kids, looking at my kids, just imagining my kids seeing anything like this, how to affect them, and looking at them and seeing me and them, knowing the things I seen at their age, I couldn't imagine it, and it puts me in a place of being a protector and working so hard. So, they don't even have to comprehend or understand what it's like to live and grow up the way I did.
After you and fellow NBA player Kevin Love spoke publicly about mental health, it prompted the NBA to add a new rule that requires every team to have at least one full-time licensed mental health professional on their staff. Round of applause for that, everybody. That was amazing. Love that. Do you think that every person should see a mental health therapist at least once a year, like how we see a doctor once a year or you see a dentist once a year?
For sure. I think it'd do more help than harm.
Okay.
I think it's something that could definitely be beneficial. It could be very educational, and you can learn a lot from it. You could take things from it. Some people may need it more than others. Some people may not. But I think it's something you definitely can learn from. A
part in your book, you said that when you first heard Jim Carrey, that was an amazing story, by the way, how you got to tweeting that message out about depression, that somebody else was able to touch you like that. But you also said that you didn't necessarily run to therapy right away. It was somebody who you met, I don't remember the guy's name, and then you said you kind of just fell into therapy, and then you got to a point where it was too much, and you're like, you know what, I don't want to do this right now because you're giving me too much to deal with. I was the exact same way during my diagnosis, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to go away. I was able to go back, I think it was like a year or 2 years later. So I just wanted to ask you, because you didn't say in the book if you went back to therapy. So I just want to know where you're at now with therapy.
Yeah, I'll go back. When I feel like it's needed. It's not nothing, for me that becomes a consistent thing. Usually in the summertime, I probably go more times than I would in a season, but it's something I still definitely indulge in.
And you also said that, that's what I want a lot of people to learn, is that you thought therapy was going to be like how it was on The Sopranos. Tony Soprano sitting down on a couch and crying and doing all that stuff. And that is exactly not what therapy is, especially when you find the right therapist. So thank you very much for talking about that. Yeah. I also want to add to, we're talking a lot about mental health today, but just to know that your whole book is not only about mental health. It is definitely memoirs about your whole story and whatever, but you weave in mental health brilliantly. So I just want to make sure that people don't think it's only a book about mental health. You do talk about a bunch of other things, just FYI. So recently on First Take, Stephen A. Smith said that if the Raptors didn't bring in Kawhi Leonard and kept you, the Raptors still would have won a championship because at that time, LeBron James was the Raptors' kryptonite, and that's the year you left and LeBron went to the West Coast. During your answer, you agreed with him, but you also said, I finally got to a point where, I was happy for them meaning the Toronto Raptors. What did you mean by that?
Once you just sit back and realize you get past your selfish, feeling of, not being able to be a part of something you feel like you was a part of for so long, you look at it more than just yourself and don't take away for the guys you play with that earn that and got a chance to experience that, and that's what I was more happy for when it all said and done. All those guys reached out to me. I talked to all those guys that I played with that same night, they won it, you know.
They all answered back your text message that night?
Yeah, I mean, while they was in the locker room, you know, and thanking me in a lot of ways, things I taught them. You know, it was a lot of stuff that went on that, you know, right after they won it that, you know, I never talked about that meant the world to me, you know, and that was the only closure I needed.
Was that therapy that helped you gain that acceptance?
Nah, I think it was what made me gain that acceptance was those guys. You know,
Got you.
Being able to, you know, go out their way, and the first thing they did was, you know, come to me. That meant a lot. You know, that showed, to me, it showed how much they really cared about what they, you know, the progress, the mission that they was on. They had me in mind the whole time. You know, that meant a lot.
I got that. That's amazing. That's the brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing that I really loved about your book is that I didn't know that your goal in life was to be on one team, like how Kobe was on one team. And it really, like I saw the interview first and then I read that in the book and I'm like, I understand why, I don't want to put words in your mouth, hurtful or whatever emotion is that like your goal. And I think this speaks so much to your character. You being born in Compton, being from LA, a whole other country, and this team in Canada picking you up and you saying, this is where I want to be for the rest of my career. But that shows like the character of who you are. So, all right, you have 5 kids, 4 girls, 1 boy. What do they think about your book and what do they think about mental health? Are they old enough yet? Do you talk to them about that?
No, I haven't got around to it yet. And I think this book kind of be like a baseline of insightful, you know, way of my life of just showing that, you know, I wasn't perfect. I was flawed. I've been through a lot of things, and, you know, hopefully by the time they could really understand what's what, they could see all the rights that I made of my wrongs that I made in my life, or certain ways I would about certain things that I wish I would have did different, and how I could teach them knowledge through a lot of my faults, you know. So I think in due time, as they get older, it'd definitely be something I could express to them, I could talk to them about, with a lot that I was going through personally, you know, that'll help them really get an understanding of what it was like for their father. Yeah.
You talk about your kids a lot in the book. Like, I learned a lot about you, but I learned how much of a family person you are, and that you got that from growing up and your whole family insulating you from the streets and the gangs and, you know, like all the respect that your family had. And you could tell that's why you are the father you are, because of the father you had, you know? So when you were growing up, your family insulated you from the streets in LA. And now with your kids not having to live that and see that, growing up here in Toronto, now being back in LA, do you still feel like you need to keep them insulated?
Nah, with my kids, I showed them the reality of just life, and that everything just isn't, you know, nice houses and, you know, quiet places. You know, I try to show them both sides of the fence, you know, so they can have a empathy and an understanding of life and be grateful.
Love that.
And show gratitude to the things that they do have, because there's a lot of people out there that don't have what they have. You know, and keep a humble emotion towards my kids. So it's something I definitely show them. I express to them. You know, one of my daughters a couple of weeks ago, I took her to Compton, to my old high school, and just, you know, showed her around and just showed her the ins and outs of everything to put in perspective what it was like.
On Paul George's podcast, you said you're not more comfortable talking about mental health personally, but you're just more confident about it now. Yeah. Where do you think that confidence comes from, and how do you think people could be more confident, like how we are talking about mental health?
Yeah, I think my confidence comes from when I sit back and realize the amount of things I went through, that I made it through, and still was able to be successful. The pain I endured, the frustration, the hurt, the loss I've had in my life. You know, sometimes I sit back and it made me realize, like, you know, I'm a extremely tough individual, and to be tough, you got to be fearful. You got to be, you know, you got to have a side to you where you just don't care. And when I say you don't care what somebody else think. Facts. or have.
Yeah, I love that.
Have their opinion affect what you say.
Yeah. Love that.
So it in a sense, I could be scared to do something, but in the same token, I got the confidence to do it, you know?
Love that, dude. Love that, man. All right, so they're telling me I can only have one more question. I'm gonna do two very quickly, okay? What does LA mean to you?
LA means everything to me. You know, LA, Compton, California, is what shaped me, what molded me, what gave me my makeup as an individual from top to bottom. So LA is home. LA is the foundation of who I am.
You and your father are big movie buffs. You guys didn't have cable. This is one of the things you get to pass the time. What's your favorite movie of all times?
Godfather 1 and 2.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you for letting me go a little further.